a very nice win, and somehow took a little bit longer than we all thought it was going to be.
And Magnus, he's very self-critical. We see that in every interview. He focuses on what he could be doing better. You could see maybe a little bit of disappointment from him there, but nonetheless, it was a smooth, professional positional game, and impossible to say who has the momentum right now. I mean, both players kind of exchanging blows, getting to know each other because they have played, but not as much as, Magnus has played someone like Hikaru.
Absolutely. But I think a very close second is Alireza. As I said in the pregame show for anybody that missed it, go look up Alireza Firouzja versus Magnus Carlsen 2020 Banter Blitz. Alireza was a 16-year-old teenager rated 2,700, and he beat Magnus in a blitz match, 8.5, 7.5. And Magnus himself says, every year you go back in time, he was a better and better player. He's his own favorite player from like 2014, right? And he's quoted in that in interviews. So Alireza's been his rival in blitz for a very long time, and it's a treat to be able to watch them to play for 3.5 hours.
And Magnus, he does not seem to be enjoying this position very much. Alireza carrying out a plan that has gotten very popular in the Italian recently, and that's the queenside pawn storm. And he's done it to perfection. Takes on f6, rook to b1, establishing some pressure down the b file. Now, Levy, I'm always tempted to play a takes b5 in these positions, but white will recapture with the rook and try to force black to get the worst bishop of all time with b7, b6. Will we see that move?
Yeah. And
rook b8 maybe, but
look at Magnus's reaction. He just completely, I guess he just forgot. Like maybe he thought he had something, but he's like, look at him. He's like, look, he can't believe it. He can't believe it. He just took a pawn and is like, what am I doing?
My opponent recaptured on b5. I think he was expecting AB, because oftentimes we're used to recapturing a pawn with a pawn to keep the stability of the structure. But the weakness of b7 is a huge problem. And the possibility of d4 Levy, the rook is also laterally pressuring the e5 pawn. Alireza, again, now it's a new problem. Now I call you Firouzja, soon I'm going to be calling you Vladimir. Then that's going to be a problem.
Preferably not.
How about Gary?
Gary I'll take. The snail from SpongeBob or Kasparov?
I heard that you called Levy Roseman by my name. I have a problem with this?
Wow, that is a fantastic impression. That was excellent.
Says the best impressionist of all time. No. I'm not talking Edouard Manet. Rook takes b7 is a free pawn, Levy, and maybe Magnus believes this is a lesser evil because the rook actually cannot move. It's pinned to the queen.
I'm shocked at what just happened in this game because he took on b5 and sat there in disbelief his opponent took back. He must have thought he had some sort of a response, or, yeah, like you said, traditional chess wisdom, pawn takes, pawn takes. But this is very bad, Danya. I mean, this is almost looking like the game that we just saw where both guys get out to a big lead early.
Yeah, but Alireza has one big problem to solve. In what he's been doing on the queen side, that has demanded a lot of resources. The queen, the rook, the knight, all are tied up on the queen side. Magnus is trying to use his narrow window of opportunity to get his knight to f4, generate some threats against the d3 pawn, against the g2 pawn. Alireza has one more big problem to solve. And, if he had this in the bullet segment, I would have been worried, but he's got plenty of time. Maybe put a knight on a5 and travel around to c6. He is so good at finding precise ways to quash his opponent's initiative.
But I must say, for folks watching at home, if we set up this training position for intermediate players, I think black wins more than white, because black's plan is very easy.
Absolutely.
Knight f4, queen g6. I mean, there's mate on g2, and their pawn is hanging on d3, which means then the pawn is hanging on e4, and the bishop on a7 can't be taken because it has pressure on the white king. This is not that easy of a position.
It's unbelievable how Magnus just let things happen on the queen side. This is the problem with openings like the white side of the King's Indian, where you're attacking the queen side and your opponent's attacking the king side. You can succeed and your opponent can succeed, but your opponent wins because the king is usually on the king side. Alireza down to 2 minutes to Magnus's 4.
That's not a good sign. Hey, what if that was gamesmanship? What if he did all those reactions to get Alireza to commit fully to the queen side and now get shocked like this? I mean, can you imagine if he was playing like that?
I mean, Magnus sometimes, he can exaggerate his reactions a little bit, and I think he's feeling more comfortable suddenly with his position. What does Alireza do? My instinct would be to just get this king off of the danger zone, go king h1. The problem is that doesn't necessarily take the sting out of knight f4. Can't go g3 Levy because the knight on f3 hangs. 90 seconds now for Firouzja. This is no joke.
He's deep in the tank. He's going for rook b8 to alleviate the tension. Now, that might look really counterintuitive because the rook is going to take and the queen has to move, but the queen's coming back to play defense.
And he wants to meet knight f4 with g3.
And I just want to quickly point out, queen c2 I think was more accurate because it defends e4 in many positions. Okay. But now g3, Danya. But now g3, you never get the knight in.
Magnus had a small window of opportunity to get the knight into f4.
g3, king g2. And I mean, white is just better.
g3 restricting the knight. Magnus going for d5, but that is not as effective because, you know, the knight can drop back to e3. And eventually this a-pawn should have its moment in the sun.
Maybe Alireza is also calculating d4, striking back somehow, but I am, or knight e3, and just saying, is knight f4 really a problem? I can just play g3 then. It is a problem because if knight takes d3.
Alireza's clock might become a problem pretty soon. He's down 3 minutes on the clock. This might be the biggest time lead in, I was going to say SEC history.
No, but
in live SEC finals history, which is 2 days old.
Yeah, let's cherry pick that stat. This is very disturbing. But I also feel, Danya, both guys are done with this segment. It's like they don't want this amount of time. Alireza just allows knight f4. What is happening?
And if he plays g3, he allows knight h3 check. So rook e1 was very counterproductive.
Queen e6 there was better for black. What is going on?
I mean, even d5 on the next move feels like Magnus getting the kind of tension he wants. Queen e6, you point out, hitting the knight. Rook before hitting the knight, another great move.
Rook before hitting everything on the fourth rank.
Which
like,
is essentially all half of white's pieces.
Yeah, like it's like a shish kebab. Like A4, C4, you got a pepper, you got beef in there. Like, what is going on? This is like, how did he allow every piece of Magnus's to be active? And how did he get to 20 seconds? Are we living in the Twilight Zone?
Well, bishop takes d4 here is the most tempting move, but that might walk into a fork on c2. It also might walk into knight g4. So Magnus isn't about collecting the pawns here. He wants to maximize this initiative. I think he needs to get the rook down to b2, and he needs to time the move queen g6 correctly because, Levy, queen g6 no longer threatens mate on g2. So I don't think it's the place to be.
Yeah, but with a rook on b2, it threatens knight h3 check, which is really disgusting.
Well, the place to be is e-spot in Paris, by the way. But Magnus with 3 minutes, and this is where the time advantage really comes in handy. It's these subtle decisions on how to continue the initiative. Alireza basically has to respond intuitively to whatever Magnus throws at him, which might be a rook.
Also important to point out, you don't get to 25 seconds in this position if you're confident in your calculations. You get to 25 seconds in this position if you're doubting yourself, and it's very difficult as a chess player to suddenly snap out of that and get really sharp. So it's going to come down to Alireza being very cautious in the time scramble, and rook b2 is on the board.
But we remember what Alireza did with Jan Nepomniachtchi in the CCT. He had like 10 seconds to Jan's 7. Alireza has an amazing track record in these crazy time scrambles.
He has 12 seconds on the clock.
It's a one-sided time scramble. Now 10 seconds as Magnus hits the f2 pawn and the g2 pawn.
Alireza just can't make a move. He has
Queen g6.
And he's blundered and he's losing.
Queen g6, g3 then is forced, and the knight combines with the rook, converging on the king side. This ain't gonna go well.
And he found it.
And g3 is forced. Maybe knight h4 can be tried.
Yeah, knight h3.
That's still not allowed knight h3.
Rook takes f2, then queen e6 picks up the knight on c4.
Oh, sharp. Restoring material equality, except white is a king on h3 that's going to get surrounded.
No, but this game is completely inexplicable. It's unbelievable. He was up a pawn for nothing. There was nothing there. It was a little bit of an attack yet to qual, and he could have played g3, could have stopped everything.
Sometimes you overthink it. He was trying to find the perfect way to arrange his pieces. Instead, he's allowed everything that he's tried to prevent. Magnus now with a big moment. He has to find rook f2, king h3, and then the tempting move is queen h5 checkmate, except it's checkmate to your winning chances after knight to h4. So you have to look at both sides of the board and pick up this vulnerable knight on c4.
And he spots it.
Beautiful work by Magnus. The final stage of the game for him, material is equal, king safety is not.
No, absolutely not. The white king on g3 is standing out on the terrace and screaming at ghosts. Rook a3 is going to target a knight, yeah, and then it's just so wild.
All of the pawns on the fourth. Queen takes d4, allows a perpetual-ish idea. He plays bishop takes d4, so f7 remains defended by the queen. Exquisite technique by Magnus, and bishop e5 will seal the deal.
And Alireza will resign in a moment.
First, he's going to launch the king up at the board, and now he's going to resign.
Wow. Wow, that was...